Well, I would like to continue once more what we discussed previously in connection with the idea of Mahamudra in the second part. Again, I would like to remind you the purpose and meaning of Mahamudra. And Mahamudra, Maha meaning great, Mudra meaning symbol, it's a great symbol. And when we talk about a symbol, in this case, we are not talking about something representing something else, but we are talking about actual direct contact. Fire burns, that is a symbol of fire. Sun shines, that is a symbol of sun. And that kind of idea of symbolism is very direct, dealing with its own manifestation of whatever it is. Maha meaning great, big, which brings about the notion of it is a greater fire, greater sun, greater situation than just simply ordinary situation where things happen that you have to reinterpret and reinterpret the whole thing. So the idea of symbolism, in this case of Mahamudra experience, is what we experience in our ordinary everyday life situation. Quite simply, directly, our ordinary everyday life situation. Our hot dogs and our toilet seat, peanut butter jelly sandwich, whatever that you care to indulge. But care to indulge is questionable. Having already had enough experience in being directly, personally, into the situation of one-pointedness, of one's practice of meditation. That brings tremendous awareness of simplicity. Having brought simplicity to one's experience, then what we're going to do with that? How about the pleasures and the oscillative of bliss and the fantastic ideas that have been pronounced in many books, many literatures of classical writings about meditation? When we're going to get exasperated in our greatest bliss? When are we going to have the fantastic cosmic orgasm? When are we going to see the real light? When are those things going to happen? When? How? What? What is this terrible world? And why we are putting up with our world, our junk, our confused world, and everyday life is seemingly excitable, but at the same time provides with lots of pain. At the same time, how about these pain And what about the bliss? And how are we going to connect these two together? Pain and pleasure are both very real in its own way, but the side of the pleasure that we didn't seem to have a great deal of experience, we have a lot of experience of pain, of course, dissatisfaction and aggression and resentment and all the rest of it. But pain, but pleasure, spiritual ecstasy, what it's all about. Well, temporarily you can stand on your head with your feet in the air. And suddenly if you stood up, your feet on the ground, with the blood gushing down your body, you get temporary pleasure, bliss, samadhi. And how many times can we do that? Each time we feel depressed. We could eat beautiful macrobiotic food. And it feels clean, absolutely clean, and good and rugged, which saves us from appendicitis. But when we can have the real cosmic shitting process take place with that, whatever you eat, you're manufacturing more shit. Whether you eat divine food or ordinary food, it is manufacturing shit in our stomach. And piss. Where is the cosmic bliss with that? And in this concept of a one taste that's been proclaimed in the Mahamudra teaching, however, we are not talking about macrobiotic. We are not talking about standing on a gymnastically holy way on your head, assuming funny postures particularly, but we are simply talking about a state of mind that we can actually work ourselves into a reality fully, that so-called pleasure and so-called pain both are same. This is not particularly poetic license to say that, but it is simply true. Pleasure is where to experience a sense of uplift, free from boredom and all the rest of it, and the pain is a downshift, which brings us to lots of realities, that things that we're supposed to be doing, things we're supposed to be engaging, and somehow it doesn't happen. Therefore the world has begun to attack us on them, and it gives us hell, is pain. And both of those situations are the same. It's energy situation. In the Mahamudra level, of course, Rochik, Ro meaning taste, Jik meaning one. One taste, that extremes are met in a one point situation, Whenever we experience extreme, pleasurable extreme or painful extreme, whatever we might experience, they are all in one. That we do not have to make a religious practice out of this particularly, but we could simply just be as they are. And that comes from what's known as the basic practice of meditation, that if you begin to sit on your zafu, zabuton, sitting on your cushion, and from that begin to develop that pleasurable thoughts, painful thoughts, good thoughts, bad thoughts, erratic thoughts, aggressive thoughts, money-making thoughts, cooking food thoughts, fighting thoughts, making love thoughts. All sorts of thoughts begin to occur in our head, our mind. But all of those are just thoughts, very grey, camouflaged by a conceptual mind. So on the whole, just like watching this rug, which has a lot of colors, if you look closely, but if you look from distance, it's just a yellowish beige. If I take my glass out, I can see that way. Just yellowish beige, in spite of all the colors that the artist is trying to make into it. Still, it doesn't make much sense. Just beige, yellowish, baby shit color. Same as our thoughts, baby shit. At the beginning, they smell sweet because our own baby's shit. If you begin to touch our tip of our tongue into it, then it feels terrible. It tastes like grown-ups shit. Yeah. Baby shit. Well, we could say quite safe that all thoughts are baby shit from that point of view. It's mediocre. It's neither young or nor old. It's somewhat half digested and half not digested. It's made out of half solid food, half mother's milk. And that's our life. And some of them pre-digested came from tins, cans. So that's what our thoughts are. They both have pleasure and pain in them each time. So we could quite simply say, what is all this fuss about our life and the spiritual search? And what is this all about? I'm getting pissed off. I'm in love. What is this all about? Well, it's a big deal. But probably nothing. Nevertheless, it's one thing. That, with the quotation that, with a capital T, that. Just that. One flavor, one taste. One taste, one flavor. Which only comes from experiencing sense of simplicity that we talked in early on in the Mahamudra experience. Having had already experience of simplicity, that we also have a sense of that, one taste, one flavor taking place. If we could gather all together, every thought, every understanding, every misunderstanding, all the conceptual mind, and all the non-conceptual mind, all the wisdom and all the stupidity, and everything, if we could include in the whole thing, and pick like vegetables, and put them in the one big cauldron, to make a big soup out of the whole thing. You have one taste. Just one taste. Do you think it highly possible? I was in love with somebody, I fall in love, which is a gigantic tomato. I was hateful to somebody, it's a very smelly onion. And if you put all of those in your big cauldron, if you boil it with the water and salt and occasional ajinomoto in it, you will taste exactly the same thing. Just a soup, vegetable soup. One taste. But it's not as boring as that. We are not making actually a mockery of the human mind. I beg your pardon. We are not insult each other, aren't we? Are we? We are not. But it is our mind which made this cosmic soup, which has all sorts of little things floating on the top, little delicacies floating on the top. But nevertheless, on the whole, when we put it in our bowl and drink it up with our spoon, it's one taste. And the tantric practitioners, such as like Milarepa, have made that particular soup. It's a very special soup, extraordinary soup. And if you can look through the 12 trials of Milarepa that we signed for tonight's talk, particularly for you to study, and we had all sorts of little facets of that. Milarepa is being a scholar and a scientist in his own right, trying to find out the real soup, the cooked by a gourmet, artistic soup, everywhere. So 12 trials, he had the first soup, which he thought that he could get a second soup after that, because first soup wasn't all that much of a soup. It was just a kind of idea. And he wanted to get into the second soup. And the cook of the first soup, which is Telopa, says, next time we do so-and-so. So then he forgets his second soup appointment, rendezvous. And he just wanders around drinking his first soup, then gets the second soup. And the second soup cook would say, now the third soup was so-and-so, he forgets the whole thing. So finally, after 12 trials, 12 experience of the whole thing, that he had this gigantic soup that made out of all sorts of flavoring, of pain, pleasure, largely lots of pain, trial. And it is a problem of being very naive, that we cannot actually pursue one taste of spirituality by experiencing naivety. We can't do that. And we can't just say that supposedly this chef is the best chef who cooked this particular kind of soup. Therefore we should trust and we should eat it up, our soup. Doesn't somehow work. That you are part of the soup as well, so therefore if you didn't take part in it, so it will be just simply terribly made TV dinner. Produced in Hong Kong. So one taste, one flavor is nothing extraordinarily Vajrayana in joke, in secret particularly, but it is how we actually experience. On the other hand, we could say quite safely, there's no such thing as a secret doctrine will make you to attain enlightenment in a fraction of a second right now. In the names of all the Buddhas of the 10 directions, the Bodhisattvas and great Vidyadhyayas of the 10 directions and the cosmos. I could say that there's no such thing as sudden enlightenment. It's true. Right? Sure. Quick trip to reality is Western manufactured version of Oriental or Buddhist truth. We have a lot of authors who have discovered the wisdom of Satori. John Bluffield, Mr. Christmas Humphreys, who we have Daisetsu Suzuki, Dr. Suzuki, and everybody's talked about the whole thing, possibilities. And then there's a person called Ernest from Hong Kong, who writes his books under the name of a pen name of Hui Wu, who talks about the open secret. But all of those books are the sudden enlightenment schools, sudden enlightenment ideas. Problem with that is that because they never discuss the one taste, but purely they talk about awake. And people are shy away from the idea of one taste, which is slightly a drag, too much trust in yourself. And there's each time when there's demand is made on individual's commitment, then shy away. Ideas you just jump in and you get blissed out, or enlightened out, or satori out. Nobody has done so. Nobody has got that. I wonder why not. After all this 2,500 years of hoo-ha, somebody should have got it. Don't you think so? The interesting point is those who got it never written a book. Those people who got it were not sociologists or psychologists or Buddhologists or Japanologists, whatever. Those who got it. They don't talk about it. If they talk about it, if necessary, someone like Telopa who said just do it, go and do it. If you don't have it, too bad. Slap on your face. That's an interesting process. That Naropa's experience of the 12 trial process was actually training towards trying to experience one taste, one experience properly, fully. One taste, by providing a lot of painful situations all along. And next point, actually, we could discuss is that the question of non-meditation, which is the final point of Mahamudra. Here comes the final. Very exciting. Non-meditation. That concept of non-meditation, this point, is simply experience of one taste. That you have failed to experience one taste, or you have actually experienced one taste, pain and pleasure one, in the realm of real, here, there, whatever. here, there, doesn't really matter. It. Just that. Whatever. Still, we don't quite get the message. From there, one taste. One taste. What does it mean? It means getting rid of ambition to meditate. By meditating a lot, you can't get rid of ambition if you don't have experience of what you're doing on the spot, properly, fully. The non-meditation part is a very interesting point. And after 12 trials of Naropa, the final point where that Telopa of Naropa's teacher slept with his sandal on his cheek. It could be interpreted at a lot of levels, of course. Being a bad student, naughty boy, or brilliant kid need affection, but whatever. Hit on the cheek. At that point, where Naropa actually realized the Mahamudra, which isn't very much, which isn't anything at all, had actually experienced the reality of something. Non-meditation, which is different than not to meditate. But non-meditation is when you meditate, you are doing nothing. Where the one taste, one flavor begin to dissolve into everything rather than become nothing. Traditional approach to that is that you begin to dissolve your dualistic conceptions of reality into one taste, but even that one taste of dualistic conceptions also dissolves into one, no effort, no need to be you or other, then you become one. Become very ordinary. And I think on the whole that the lineage is pulling us a lot of tricks on us. Any questions? Any brave person want to ask a question? Green, orange?
Rinpoche, what do you mean the lineage is pulling tricks on us?
Well, strictly speaking, there's nothing to learn other than our own mind. We don't need books. But on the other hand, we do need them. So it's a double bind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Come back to the Milarepa Institute.
Rinpoche, at the beginning of the lecture, you talked about the meaning of Maha, and you said that it meant greater than just a simple situation. What did you mean by that?
Well, Maha literally means big, giant, in the Sanskrit language. But in this case, we are not talking about reference point. It's none better than anything else, which is beyond a reference point. You see what I mean? It's not really big opposed to small, but it is none better than anything big.
I didn't hear that.
None better than anything big, anything great. None better than anything great, which means it's self-existing.
Okay.
My question is about the other part, mudra, which in talking about that, you said it's like the sun shines, and that confused me a little bit because the shining property of the sun is like a quality of it, and I would wonder if you could tie that together with the Heart Sutra insight.
Saying what?
There are no qualities of thought, no qualities of taste.
No, we don't want to go through that zigzag. Jigsaw puzzle. Heart Sutra is a jigsaw puzzle from Vajrayana's approach. It's just training kids. But in the Vajrayana of the our tradition, we probably would say, shine sun. Shine sun, rather than sunshine. It's not grammatic, obviously. It's beyond grammatic. But shine is first, and sun is just a qualification of that whole thing. That sharp knife sharp, sharp knife, shine sun, burning fire. So the actual experience comes first. Then you say, whatever that may be, where they come from. Do you see what I mean? So that's how the mudra is that shine sun, full moon, sharp knife, blazing fire. So you put the qualifications first, which has a linguistic, mantric point of view, as that Mahamudra. Maha is first, big symbol. So it doesn't say symbol big, but a big symbol, Mahamudra. It becomes real. And when you have the actual size and the shape, how things actually happens, how penetrating the whole thing is, then the original is just a byproduct, and just a very little thing.
So you would say then that it's actually the thought doesn't exist, but the qualities of thought.
Yeah, the perception is first, and then thought, little thought. Little thought comes a little after that. So reality, and then the description of reality comes much later. That's Mahamudra approach to reality, sure. But anyhow, we might have problems with that. If you're trying to make that into a trip, obviously, or anything else of that nature,